I mean, they're projected to lose between 2 and 400 million on this.
Snow White isn't just another animated movie in Disney's vault. It's the company's foundation, the 1937 masterpiece that forever changed film and popular culture. Children who grew up on the story of a princess and her 7 quirky companions never forgot the magic, and generations have passed that love down like a treasured heirloom. So when Disney announced they were bringing this classic into the live-action realm, excitement was practically guaranteed. But with a legacy so revered, the pressure was enormous from day one. After all, when you're dealing with Walt Disney's very first princess, you're toying with the cornerstone of the brand. You're also dealing with fans who have a lifelong attachment to every note of "Someday my prince will come." Any big changes, be they to the storyline, the characters, or the music, risk alienating millions of loyal viewers. What nobody foresaw was how those risks would spiral out of control. The bigger the hype, the bigger the potential flop, and Snow White 2024 is proving that point with brutal clarity. The reimagining was meant to breathe new life into an old classic, showcasing modern values while respecting the original's timeless charm. Instead, behind-the-scenes tensions bubbled over, the marketing took a bizarre turn, and a wave of controversies overshadowed the release. This was not supposed to happen. Disney poured staggering sums into production and promotion, confident that a beloved fairy tale, updated for a new generation, would be a guaranteed success. But as you'll see, from casting choices to last-minute script changes, the creative process was fraught with pitfalls. Worse yet, the fiasco that followed wasn't just a minor stumble. It became a slow-motion train wreck that no one at Disney seemed able to stop. Not too long ago, Rachel Zegler was a rising star who seemed to have fate on her side. She had dazzled critics with her vocal talent and promising acting chops, landing high-profile roles early in her career.
Really shocks me about this story, Disney and all these media companies, they invest hundreds of millions of dollars into these projects, right? Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing before you go and hire some Zoomer who's a lunatic?
Disney saw her as the ideal lead for a modern Snow White. She had the singing ability, the youthful energy, and the social media following that executives believed would help reach a new generation. Insiders say the casting department was thrilled. They assumed she'd bring the same spark she showed in earlier roles, capturing the innocence of the princess and the new spirit Disney wanted to emphasize. In theory, it was a match made in Hollywood heaven. The oldest Disney princess, reintroduced by one of the entertainment industry's most promising young talents. But sometimes the gap between theory and reality is vast. Early signs suggested that Rachel's outspoken nature might clash with a corporation known for polishing every public statement until it shines like a fairy tale castle. She's not the first star to speak her mind, but the difference here was the level of control Disney tries to wield over every aspect of its brand. When initial footage leaked, showing lavish sets, vibrant costumes, and modern twists, the internet lit up with curiosity. Could this be another Cinderella 2015 or Beauty and the Beast 2017, capturing hearts and dominating the box office? Or would this attempt at reinvention prove to be a step too far? Even then, as excitement brewed, a few quiet voices behind the scenes wondered if they'd taken a bigger gamble than they realized. The trouble began innocently enough. A few interviews here, a panel discussion there, standard promotional stops for a big-budget Disney film. But then Rachel opened up about her thoughts on the original Snow White, and the temperature in the fan community skyrocketed overnight.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
She referred to the 1937 classic as old-fashioned and creepy, raising eyebrows among devoted Disney followers who revere every frame of that film as sacred cinematic history. While modernization is nothing new, especially in Hollywood remakes, Rachel's tone seemed particularly dismissive. She poked fun at the idea that a princess would fall in love with a prince she barely knew, labeling it stalkerish. To many fans, it sounded like she was mocking the core love story that made Snow White iconic in the first place. If she had simply said the original story needed updating for contemporary audiences, perhaps the backlash wouldn't have been so severe. But her directness came off like scorn, fueling a surge of anger among those who felt their childhood memories were under attack.
So the two stars hate each other.
Social media exploded. Hashtags like #NotMySnowWhite trended, and comment sections filled with accusations that Rachel was ridiculing Walt Disney's legacy. Some people cheered her for speaking up, arguing that times have changed and so should fairy tales. But the overwhelming response leaned negative, suggesting that Disney's loyal base felt betrayed. Behind closed doors, Disney executives reportedly scrambled. Could they spin her remarks as merely playful banter? Would a carefully crafted statement soothe the fans' fury? Quickly became clear that the fan fury wasn't limited to hardcore Disney aficionados. Casual viewers, parents, and even neutrals who grew up with the original began to feel the friction. What should have been a positive press tour became a firestorm of memes, critical blog posts, and endless online discussions about whether the studio
Rachel Zegler, she's an
had let an outsider tarnish a cultural touchstone. Disney had banked on Rachel's fresh perspective appealing to younger audiences, but her interviews were accomplishing the exact opposite of what a promotional campaign is meant to do. Even before production wrapped, eagle-eyed netizens dug up Rachel's older social media posts, some of which skewed intensely political. She'd apparently gone after several public figures and groups, showing no fear in stating her opinions. Normally, actors having personal beliefs isn't a deal-breaker. But Disney, known for its family-friendly image and broad appeal, found itself caught off guard by the polarizing nature of Rachel's comments. To some, these were simply the passionate expressions of a socially conscious young person. To others, they were inflammatory, alienating potential ticket buyers who preferred Disney stay neutral. In an increasingly divided cultural climate, big brands are especially wary of public figures who might polarize audiences. Suddenly, the conversation was no longer about a princess, her dwarves, or a modern script. It became about identity politics, generational divides, and the question of whether Rachel was the right choice to helm Disney's beloved classic. Insiders say that once these issues gained momentum online, top Disney executives convened crisis meetings. Their mission: find a strategy to prevent the controversy from overshadowing the film's release. Rumors flew that Disney's legal department combed through Rachel's contract, looking for provisions that might restrict inflammatory statements or require compliance with the company's family-oriented brand guidelines. Morality clauses are not unheard of in Hollywood, especially with studios that stake their reputations on safe, globally marketable content. But from Rachel's perspective, stepping back or toning down her views might have felt disingenuous. She'd built her identity around being honest and bold, and if she reversed course, it could look like selling out. Meanwhile, the public was growing increasingly suspicious that her later apologies and clarifications were scripted. The big question remained: was she trying to make amends because she'd had a change of heart, or was this a ploy orchestrated by Disney's PR machinery? The day Snow White 2024 hit theaters, the tension was palpable. Despite the controversies, many still expected Disney's time-honored brand power to carry the film at least to a respectable opening. Yet box office trackers reported shockingly low attendance from both family audiences and nostalgia-driven older viewers. The domestic debut scraped by with a figure so lackluster that industry analysts declared the film a bomb right out of the gate. Early estimates pegged the movie's cost, production plus marketing, at somewhere north of $250 million. When opening weekend returns fell far below even the most conservative predictions, the panic at Disney headquarters reached a fever pitch. Internally, executives and producers began pointing fingers. Was it the new direction of the story? The controversies swirling around the lead actress? The insufficient marketing push? Or a combination of all three? Then came the truly explosive rumor that Disney was seriously considering holding Rachel financially responsible for part of the film's failure. Multiple entertainment insiders claimed Disney higher-ups discussed invoking some form of restitution. They pointed to brand damage, negative publicity, and the notion that her public remarks significantly contributed to the disastrous launch. Nobody knew if such a move would stand up legally or if it was even feasible. But whispers of potential lawsuits and legal showdowns rattled the industry. Disney succeeded in recouping losses by citing breach of contract or morality clauses. It might set a precedent that would change how actors and actresses navigate social media forever. Meanwhile, morale within the production team plummeted. Co-stars, some of whom had publicly supported Rachel, clammed up. The sense was that the studio had declared an all-out crisis, and it felt like everyone was waiting to see who would be scapegoated. In many ways, Rachel became the focal point of all frustrations, fairly or not. When the full magnitude of the box office failure became clear, Rachel's social media presence underwent a dramatic shift. Gone were the bold proclamations and unapologetic stances. In their place appeared carefully worded apologies, sprinkled with praise for Disney's legacy and acknowledgments of the fans' emotional ties to the original Snow White. To some, this felt like a genuine attempt to bridge the gap. To others, it was obvious corporate engineering, phrases fed to her by brand strategists desperate to quell the storm. According to leaks from those close to the situation, Rachel was both angry and scared. Angry that her dream role had turned into a public relations minefield, and scared that her career might never recover from the fiasco. Rumor has it she was even told that if her apologies didn't soften fan sentiment, the studio might look into harsher legal avenues to recoup losses or limit her future involvement in Disney properties. Hollywood took notice. Producers began second-guessing whether to work with someone who had become so polarizing. A-listers have weathered scandals before, but in the modern age of social media, public opinion can shift with terrifying speed. It's one thing for an actor to face criticism. It's quite another for that criticism to decimate the earnings of a mega-budget film. Meanwhile, entertainment insiders debated whether Disney's approach had been overly controlling from the start. Perhaps allowing a young actress to speak freely was a ticking time bomb that could have been diffused with a bit more guidance, or a more unified message. Some argued that the real fault lay in the film's script and direction, which diverged so drastically from the original Snow White that it might have alienated fans regardless of Rachel's interviews. In the aftermath, Disney found itself navigating an uncomfortable predicament: how to proceed with live-action remakes when the latest example had gone down in flames. The company had several other revamps planned with big budgets and big aspirations. But the Snow White debacle cast a shadow over every upcoming title. If a cornerstone of Disney's legacy could flop this hard, what about lesser-known properties with less built-in fan enthusiasm? Executives allegedly began drafting new guidelines around social media usage, PR training, and background checks for big-profile hires. After all, from their point of view, if an actress's personal comments could sink an entire project, something had to change. They feared that another fiasco like Snow White could shatter confidence in Disney's brand at a time when streaming wars and audience fragmentation were already making Hollywood more competitive than ever. As for Rachel, her reputation took a heavy hit, but Hollywood is built on comebacks, especially for someone as talented as she is. Agents and managers weighed strategies to rebrand her as a thoughtful, more measured actress who respects fan passions, even if she champions modern views. She could lie low for a while, wait for the controversy to cool, and then resurface in a smaller indie film to remind people of her raw talent. Or she could attempt a bold pivot, doubling down on her viewpoints and carving out a new niche far away from Disney's squeaky clean aura. What's certain is that her days as the next Disney darling are likely over, at least for now. Whether the studio cuts ties officially or leaves the door slightly ajar, the bridging of that gap seems nearly impossible without a monumental shift in public perception. And if Disney does attempt any legal actions to reclaim costs, it might alienate other actors fearful of working under such restrictive terms. If you peel back the layers of this saga, a picture emerges of a studio torn between preserving nostalgia and chasing modern relevance. By all accounts, Snow White was greenlit with the goal of updating the story for 21st century audiences, stripping away what some view as outdated themes of romance and subservience. In principle, that goal doesn't sound catastrophic. Disney has successfully reimagined classics before, but the script developments were rumored to be chaotic. Numerous rewrites happened even during filming, with new lines and scenes inserted to amp up girl power while downplaying the true love's kiss angle. Early test screenings reportedly left audiences confused about who the film was really for. Was this a story for adult fans wanting nostalgia, or for a new generation unfamiliar with the 1937 original? Mixed messaging took over the marketing campaign. Official posters showcased a bright, vibrant palette reminiscent of the animated film, but interviews with the cast touted a darker, more realistic approach to the fairy tale. The disconnect was palpable. By the time Rachel did her interviews, the stage was set for outrage, because fans already sensed the movie was straying too far from the source material. Her remarks merely confirmed those fears. In essence, the disaster may have been inevitable. A house divided cannot stand, and Disney's creative house was split between loyalists and modernists, each pushing for a vision they believed would keep the studio relevant. Rachel's outspoken nature became a convenient scapegoat for a project that was flawed at its core. Had the movie been well received, her remarks might have been brushed off as humorous commentary. But because it crashed at the box office, every misstep got magnified. Snow White was supposed to be a triumphant retelling of Disney's very first princess story, a meeting of cherished nostalgia and modern-day sensibilities. Instead, it became a cautionary tale for Hollywood and fans alike, a story about how even the biggest brand in the world can stumble when it underestimates its audience and mishandles a beloved legacy. From Rachel Zegler's public missteps to the script's radical changes, from political landmines to potential legal action, the Snow White 2024 remake piled controversy upon controversy until it collapsed under its own weight. In the process, it showed just how quickly public sentiment can turn, especially in an era where social media outrage spreads like wildfire. It's easy to pin the blame on one actress or one series of interviews, but the truth is more complex. Disney's attempt to straddle the line between progressive storytelling and brand preservation created a foundation too shaky to hold. Rachel's provocative commentary might have amplified the backlash, but the deeper issues were baked into the production from day one. Whether Rachel Zegler can rebuild her reputation remains to be seen, but Hollywood loves a redemption arc, provided the talent is real and the sincerity is genuine. As for Disney, the studio now faces the task of restoring faith in its live-action remakes. Will it learn from the Snow White fiasco and approach these classic stories with more care, or will it double down on modernization at any cost? In the end, perhaps the biggest twist is how a fairy tale intended to enchant new audiences ended up exposing the fault lines in Disney's empire. If nothing else, it's a reminder that even the most magical kingdom on Earth isn't immune to a harsh dose of reality. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Did Rachel's comments doom the movie, or was Disney's vision misguided from the start? Are the fans justified in their outrage, or did social media blow everything out of proportion? Tell us where you stand and keep an eye on this saga, because if there's one thing Hollywood loves, it's a sequel to a scandal. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more inside scoops on the wild world of entertainment. Sometimes real-life drama is crazier than any script, and this Snow White meltdown proves it. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled. There's always more to the story than meets the eye.